Welcome in. It's Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us with the NFL Draft coming up in just a matter of days. On today's show, I want to lay out for you the perfect draft plan for your Seattle Seahawks, how they should go about this draft, some key players to watch, and some moves to make. I will lay out the game plan for Seattle heading in to the draft beginning on Thursday night in a matter of moments. Before we do, quick poll question here. Who is your dream draft target for the Seahawks? Now, this could be somebody at 5. This could be somebody at 20. Could be somebody later in the draft. This is up to you. Open to interpretation. Tell me who your dream target is for the Seahawks in this upcoming draft. I'm very curious who comes to mind that you look at a player and you see that guy needs to be a Seahawk. Who is that guy? Tell me who it is in the comment section, and we'll get started with today's show. So here's what I have. I have my 4-point plan for a perfect draft for the Seattle Seahawks. And where we begin with my perfect 4-point plan, in just a moment, we're going to talk defense. But first, let's just go over some of the numbers here of what the draft looks like for the Seahawks of their draft picks. 5 and 20, 37, 52. Those are 4 picks in the top 52 for Seattle, including 2 picks in the top 20. Then you got 52, 83, and then you got 123, 2 in the 5th round at 151 and 154, and then you wrap up things at 198 and 237. So not only do the Seahawks have 10 picks, but they have a lot of flexibility to work with these 10 picks to potentially trade up, trade down, whatever it may be to get the guys that they want. So with that, number 1 on the perfect draft plan for Seattle, stay at 5. Stay at 5. I know that we've heard rumblings about should the Seahawks trade up or should they trade down potentially. But to me, I look at it this way. Seattle is in a unique position with the number 5 selection. When it's all said and done, for Seattle, one of these 3 players should be on the board. If not, all 3 of these players should be on the board. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and Tyree Wilson. I would love to have any of the 3, okay? I don't know how the board's going to shake out ultimately. None of us know for sure. But one of those 3 will be there. And for me, with knowing that, I don't think you can miss on either one of these guys. You would, in the night, if you get one of those guys jumping for joy, in particular Carter and Anderson. If you get one of them, you're feeling great. And so, as the Seattle Seahawks, trading up, no thanks. Trading down, I don't want to lose one of these guys either. Just stay pat, hold serve at 5, get one of these guys, and to me, you're off to a great start to this draft. Who should Seattle draft at 5? Whether it's one of those 3 guys we talked about or somebody else, who would you like to see Seattle draft with that number 5 selection? Let me know in the comments section who you'd like to see them pick up. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in and tell me who you think the Seahawks should draft at number 5. So number 2 on our perfect draft plan is with the 20th pick. Now we're okay with making a trade potentially. Trading down from 20, but staying in the first round. Here's the deal, okay? Hear me out on this, folks. With the Seahawks draft situation at number 20, when you get past the top 10, I think the talent is not that big of a gap between players that fall from like 11 all the way to about 45. I don't think that's that big of a gap. Now, why is it important to stay in the first round? Because you still have the 5th-year option possibility, and you don't want to drop too far necessarily. I mean, you want to take advantage of a year like this where you have 2 first-round picks, okay? And there are a number of teams that could be interested in trading to your spot and still staying in the first round. The Chargers very well might want to move up 1 spot. The Giants, the Cowboys, the Bills, the Eagles. I mean, think about this, folks. At that 20th selection, maybe Bijan Robinson is still available. What about the run on receivers? It's expected that should start around that range of the guys after Jackson Smith and Jigba, the Quentin Johnstons, the Jordan Addisons, the Zay Flowers of the world. And all 5 of these teams that you see right now pick behind Seattle and could want to move up to add that playmaker, potentially. So for me, you move down potentially, you get maybe a third later, and you still get a pretty dang good player that might be just as good as what you picked at 20 anyway. To me, that's intriguing. Bill Barnwell of ESPN laid out a interesting scenario about this move, and this is what he brought up on ESPN.com the other day. Listen to this. Moving up here would get the Giants ahead of the Chargers, who would be looking for a similar injection of speed to their receiving core. Seattle general manager John Schneider should be happy to pick up a third-round choice for moving down 5 spots, that being with the New York Giants, just as an example potentially of a team that could move up there. What do you think about 20? Should the Seahawks trade down from 20? Tell me in the comments section why for yes, in for no. Should the Seahawks trade down from the 20th pick? Tell me what you think. Why for yes, in for no in the comments section below. Today's show is sponsored by Z-Biotics. Let's face it, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats, I don't bounce back well the next day. That is until I found Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut when you need it most. Drink Z-Biotics before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give Z-Biotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports and get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring today's video. All right, moving on now to number 3 on our list. That is taking care of your team needs. It sounds simple, but there are a lot of things specifically that the Seahawks team needs to address. Now, some needs obviously have more priority than others, but nonetheless, when you go through this draft, there are things that need to be taken care of for this Seattle Seahawks team when you look at what this team is needing to take care of. And I'll say this, before we go over the team needs and potential players to fill those team needs, let me preface all of this. Don't take this the wrong way, folks. The Seahawks, as is, are already a good football team. I think going into this draft, Seattle, on paper, looks like a top 4 or 5 team in the NFC. But you are in a very tough division with the San Francisco 49ers right there, okay? Now, if you address some of these needs and do what you need to do, that could take a huge step of getting this roster where it needs to be. I mean, think about this. Edge, interior defensive line, interior of the offensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, running back, corner. And here's what I mean, the wide receiver spot. You have 2 great receivers in DK and Tyler, but you need help at the third wide receiver spot, although that's not something that you have to take care of right away. Running back, you have a very good running back in Kenneth Walker, but he needs a running mate of some sorts, right? Corner, you did a really good job last year with Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant, but when it hurts you to go ahead and start thinking about another piece as well to develop another corner out there. So that's what I mean when looking at these team needs, that you have some that mean a lot more than others do. With that said, let me just go over some positions of need after the first round and guys to watch out for. Torrence, the offensive guard from Florida, started his career with the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, with Billy Napier, was all Sun Belt Conference there, moved to the SEC with Napier, and was all SEC last year. He is a heck of a football player and could be an instant impact player for Seattle if they were to draft him. Might be available early second round. He might slide into the back of the first round. John Michael Schmitz, arguably the best center in this draft. He'll be a second-round pick, and he is a name to watch, a bruiser there out of Minnesota. Defensive tackle-wise, if you somehow don't go D-tackle in the first round or if you're looking to potentially double up, Mazi Smith is an option out of Michigan. Keion White, the edge rusher out of Georgia Tech, another name to watch, and he's starting to climb up some boards as well. A few other names to keep in mind of some guys after round one. Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas, very good linebacker that's very athletic, who had a good career, started at Alabama, finished up at Arkansas. Marvin Mims out of the University of Oklahoma. I think Mims is kind of getting disrespected in this draft. I think he's a hidden gem personally. We've talked so much about, the top core receivers of Flowers, JSN, Johnston, Addison. I don't think Mims is far off from that group. I think that he can be very, very good and would be a nice steal for somebody, and right away would be a good fit for Seattle as their number 3 receiver. Zach Charbonnet, running back from UCLA, is another guy that could bring a lot to the Seattle offense. And then Julius Brents, he's seen his stock rise a ton, the corner from K-State. He's another name to watch. He was talked about early on in the draft process as a day 3 guy, and now he is first or second round potential and could be somebody that would see playing time right away for Seattle. So those are some names to watch at positions of need that should be available after the first round. Name a player the Seahawks should draft after round 1. Who would you like to see in a Seahawks uniform that won't be a first-round pick more than likely, with one of those round 2 picks or later? Tell me in the comments section who you would like to see in Seattle this upcoming year that is not going to be a first-round pick more than likely. We will be live on Thursday night for the NFL Draft. Our coverage will get started about an hour beforehand, and we'll be live for the Seahawks picks in the first round, and we'll break down the picks in real time. We'll react to everything that's going on. Myself, Big Tex will be here, our draft party. We know you guys like to party, so why don't you party with us here on Seahawks Today Live, coming up on Thursday night. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. Join us here on Thursday. So we mentioned take care of your team needs. It seems kind of obvious, but there are several things to address. But last on this list is finding a late-round quarterback. Look, I don't think Seattle's going to be in position to get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, and so that's a big reason why I'm against picking a quarterback there at 5, because I don't believe in Anthony Richardson or Will Levis personally. But think about this. Before we show you these names of who could potentially be available in those later rounds, here's something to keep in mind. Look at the division rival San Francisco 49ers last year. They went into 2022 with Trey Lance as their starter, Jimmy Garoppolo as their backup, and Brock Purdy, who was the very last pick in last year's draft. And their offensive line was pretty good, right? With Trent Williams, one of the greatest left tackles of all time, leading the way. And what happened to San Francisco? Even with a great O-line and everything, they still were playing their third quarterback by, what was it, week 11 or 12? And even Brock Purdy got hurt in the NFC Championship game. And so if I'm the Seahawks, you got to evaluate the quarterbacks and have even a third option potentially. If something were to happen to Geno or happen to Drew Lock, a guy that could be ready to step up in one of those scenarios, one of those situations. And also with this, think about the Belichick philosophy. Belichick loves to take a quarterback about every year or so. And that's turned into great draft capital for New England. All those guys were never going to replace Tom Brady. I mean, what happened after Tom left? A year or two later, they got Mac Jones. And they still, none of those guys they drafted ever replaced Tom. But they got a ton of draft capital for the Matt Castles, the Jimmy G's of the world. It's a smart strategy to pick a late-round quarterback and see what you got. Take a shot at him. You got 10 picks anyway. Here's some guys to keep in mind. Clayton Tune, Jake, Max, DTR, Aidan O'Connell, all of those guys I'd be interested in for Seattle to potentially take as a late-round quarterback. Do not give me Stetson Bennett. I don't want to hear one damn word about Stetson Bennett. If you mention Stetson Bennett, how dare you? But any of these other guys, especially like Clayton Tune, to me, I'd be very fascinated with as a late-round quarterback potentially. Pick a quarterback. Who's somebody the Seahawks should draft? Whether it's one of those guys at the beginning of the draft or if you're like me and like one of these late-round guys. Tell me a name Seattle should draft in the comments section below. So to recap, the perfect draft plan for Seattle, stay at 5, draft defense, trade down from 20, but stay in the first round. Take care of your team needs. There's a lot of them that need to be addressed. Do it. And then find a late-round quarterback. That is all for Seahawks today. Thanks for joining us. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, @Tyler Jones Live, and I will see you next time right here on the channel. Thanks for joining us.